Hello, welcome to Regina's Crafting and More YouTube channel. I'm going to show you today how to take an IQ Designer design, or in the case of a brother, the My Design Center design, and bring it into your Palette 11 or PE Design 11 software to do some modifications so you don't have to start all over in IQ Designer, since it won't let you insert steps into your file placement. So when you're in your machine in IQ Designer, if you will, or if you've already left, you can go to your pocket and go to your machine and open your last design and save it to your USB stick, and bring your USB stick to your computer. Open up your software, and I'm getting ready to insert my USB stick. And when you insert your USB stick, it'll tell you what designation down here on the right, what designation your USB stick is. Mine is M. So to open, close that out. To open your design from your USB stick, you want to import it because it's not in a PES format, which is what Palette 11 and PE Design use. If you don't have this part set up on your computer over here on the right, where you have import, color, sewing, and text attributes, you can get to them by clicking on View. I'll click on Home. This is your main page. You click on View, go to Attributes, and you've got Sewing, Text, and Color attributes right here. I'm trying to remember where. Oh, here's your import pane. Okay. So you need to import. In order to do that, you have to go to your file folder over here on the right, next to File Type, and it brings up all your drives and your files on your computer, and you want to go down to the designation for your USB. Remember, it came up down here on the right. It said mine was M, and say OK. So it brings up what you feel is everything that's on your USB drive, but oh, guess what? It doesn't show your design from IQ Designer, which will have a PXP or PXH or some file designation like that. So in order to see that, and why this system doesn't let you do that, you have to go back to your file folder, and now you have this pocket folder, Baby Lock Pocket. I don't know what the brother, I guess the brother would say B2, Pocket. And you say OK. So now here are the designs that you have saved to your USB stick, and the last one is usually the very last one you created, when you might have realized that, oh geesh, I left out a step. So we would click on the file, click Import, and it brings the design in. The only problem now is that you cannot insert a step or delete a step, because when I click on step 1 or color 1 and select objects, it selects it all. So in order to do any modification, you have to convert this design, which ends in a PHX file designation. You have to right click with all this selected, right click, and say select Convert to Blocks. OK. You have to do one more thing in order to be able to modify it. You have to ungroup it. So you'll right click, ungroup. And when you click off now, each individual step is accessed without, if I select here, it doesn't select all of them. So you can make changes and add or delete things within this file now. So when I created mine in IQ Designer, I left out a couple of steps that I like to have. And I also realized, well shoot, I didn't make this zigzag or satin stitch wide enough, and I didn't put in an open zigzag to make sure that when I cut my fabric away from this main fabric right here, that my zigzag will cover up those edges, those raw edges. So I'm going to do some changes. So, and I'm sure most of you have probably learned IQ Designer from either Gloria Horn's Sewing Studio or Mama's Boy or Sew with Joe. I haven't done a whole lot with Sew with Joe. I have watched a lot of Mama's Boy, and he does basically the same as Gloria Horn, so we'll just leave it at that. So I've learned IQ Designer mainly from Gloria Horn. So my first stitch that was created in IQ Designer is the placement stitch, and if you've watched any of her videos, all of them are the same. The pink is the placement stitch. When I learned digitizing years and years ago, my teacher taught me to use pink as a placement, blue as a stitch, and then all the other colors for whatever. So the placement here is fine. We lay down our batting back here to start. The blue stitches down the batting, so we're okay there. Number 3 is a designation for the center fabric. I want to change mine to pink just because that's a placement line. So I'm going over here to color, and I'm going to pick pink. So that's now changed. So that stitches the placement line for the fabric for the middle egg. This step number 4 stitches down that fabric. Step number 5 is for the decorative stitches in the middle. Everything's fine so far. Now stitch number 6 is to do the large egg. It is a placement for the large egg for the fabric. Stitch number 7 should lay down the stitches to tack down that fabric, because remember, pink is for placement. So I need to insert an egg line that is for stitches. So in order to do that, I'm going to click on my large egg, which I know this one is because my dotted lines are out here. I'm going to right click, click Select Objects, and then I'm going to hover over that line and say Copy, click Off, and right click Paste. So that puts a pink egg, the large one on the outside, way down here at the bottom. I'm going to drag it up, and I'm going to change it to blue because that's a placement stitch. So that's now, we have number 6, which is the placement for the fabric. We don't have to stitch it. It's just a reminder. Number 6 stitches that down. I'm going to change it to a triple stitch because I want to make sure that fabric doesn't move. Okay, so we're good there. We've got our fabric for the outside fabric, the outside egg shape. It's laying on top of all of this, all of it. We're going to say that this is a pink fabric laying on top of all this. So this step is number 8. It stitches the little egg on top of your main fabric that's right here, and you cut away, leaving all this open. Step number 9 is the candle wicking, so it stitches that. Step number 10 should be a zigzag, an open stitch zigzag that comes back on top on your main fabric for your big egg and does an open zigzag to ensure that you are covering your fabric raw edge. Up here on this stitch, you would have laid your fabric and it's triple stitched. Okay, you could have cut your fabric then, but because you were going to do candle wicking down here, I wouldn't cut my fabric until down here. So let's put, okay, here's another thing that got somehow in here from IQ Designer, that it's a little bitty, let me go here and I'll show you. It's a little stitch right at the top. I don't know what that's there for. So I'm going to right click, select objects. I don't need it, and I'm going to hit my delete button on my keyboard. So now I don't have that stitch there. The same thing happened on the candle wicking. Select, let me go home and go out a little bit, and there it is right there. Select, and we're going to delete it. So how those got in there, I don't know. All right, so we need a couple of things placed in this numbering system, stitch sections. Let me go back to a large screen. So we need a open zigzag placed behind this satin stitch line. In order to do that, I can come up to step number 6, select it with my mouse cursor, left mouse click, right click, select object, and I can hover over this line right there and right click and copy, or I could hold my control button on my keyboard and press the C button on the keyboard and it would copy. So I've copied, click off, right click, paste, or I could hold down the control button and press V and it would paste. Alright, so here's the large egg from number 6 that we copied down here, and I want to move it up above the satin stitching because I want to create a zigzag, but I want it to be an open zigzag. So I'm going to click over here on sewing attributes, or once again you can go here and click sewing attributes if you don't have this established in your palette 11. So I want to change this egg shape from a placement line to a zigzag line. So I'm going to change it to a blue, and I'm going to go to sewing attributes, and I'm going to click up a couple of notches for the zigzag width, and then I'm going to change this density to 30. I just want it wide enough that when I go back up here to stitch my final stitches on the egg, it covers the fabric that I've cut back. So you can trim the fabric up here after your triple stitch, or you can wait and trim it before you stitch this zigzag. Okay, so we've done that. We've changed it to an 11 width and a 30 density. And I'll show you what that looks like on this stitch. So we're going through all the stitched lines, and we're going through the candle wicking, and then this next area, that would be your open zigzag. And you can tell that it is not a satin, heavy satin. And why it stitches twice, I do not know. But this will ensure that it covers your satin stitch that, as you can see right now, would be stitching out. But I want my satin stitch wider. Well, I can't change that width over here because this was created in IQ Designer. So what I can do is I can choose this egg shape running stitch, select it, and Control C, or hover over the line till you get the double arrows, right click, copy, click off, and you can right click paste, or you can hold your control button and hit V, and it places that egg shape down here again. I'm going to, now if I click this, I can manipulate the width and everything, but let me change it first up here to zigzag. Okay, so now I'm going to change the color. Let me go out here over here and change the color and hope that I don't pick the same egg color. Okay, I didn't. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of this step right here, which is the original one from IQ Designer. And I'm going to select the object and I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard. And I have the one I just added, and I need to increase the width of the zigzag, and I'm going to increase it up to 14, 15, and I'm going to increase the density to 120. Alright, so now I've inserted my extra steps. I've ensured that all these other steps are the way I want them. A placement line for the batting, stitching down the batting, a placement line for the inside egg, a placement line for the fabric, and then stitching down the fabric. It stitches down the decorative stitch, and then I've got another placement line that goes back up to the main fabric for the large egg. And the more I look at this, the more it looks like an avocado. It has a placement line for the large egg. You don't have to stitch that because you have this line to go by. That's step number 1. And then it stitches down your fabric once you've placed your fabric on here. When you place that fabric, remember, it's going to cover up all this right here on this inside egg. So we have our stitching line that stitches where you're going to cut. I don't have that as a blue, I have it as a red. Warning, warning, you need to cut this. So you cut it out, it comes back, it does your candle wicking. We go back up to the top and you have a zigzag. It's 0.11 width, and it's going to cover your cutting, your raw edges on your fabric that you place down. You either cut it off after you do your triple stitch, or you wait and you cut it before you do this zigzag. But it's going to ensure that your raw edges are covered. Then here is your final satin stitch around your main fabric. Now I want to add one more step to this because I like to put in a top stitch line on top of the zigzag, just kind of an extra little touch. I'm going to change this red to a hot pink for Easter, and on top of that I want to place a top stitch line. So I'm going to go back up here to my number 6 step, right click, select object, and I'm going to hit control, hold down the control button and hit the C on the keyboard for copy, and I'm going to let go, and then I'm going to hold the control button and type V. See, it tells you control V on here. Whoops, let's see here, control V, and there's my line from sections from your number 6 step down here. I'm going to change that to a gold. Gold, okay. And when I do, let me zoom in. You can see that it now has, in the middle of my satin stitch, I have a top stitch line. You could change that to any motif line if you wanted. Let me click on this. If I changed it to a motif, and I go over to my sewing settings, I can choose. I could choose anything. I could choose this one, and it would put that over your satin stitching. You can adjust the width of that and the height of that, whatever. So you could just choose any decorative stitch on top of that. You could put candle wicking on top of that. I don't think I would like that though. Anyhow, you get the point. So I'm going to undo this and undo again, get back to my straight stitch that I originally, running stitch that I originally put on there. So that's it. Now we have all the steps we need, and we can go File or click on the flower and go Save As. Save it to your hard drive, which mine is buried down here. Y'all crack up laughing. Here's this. I go to Embroidery and I go to my banners, because this is created for my banners and my Easter. And I'm going to click here, but I'm going to change it to number 3 because I have a couple of... I'm at my machine. I'm going to pull up this design that we just went through. So I've plugged in my USB stick, and I'm going to go to Embroidery. I'm going to go to the pocket, and when that comes up, I'm going to click on my USB port. By the way, this is a Logitech M100 mouse. Plugs in case anybody is trying to find a mouse. Logitech M100. And it works okay. It works good. Alright, so this is my USB stick. And I want to go down until I find my last egg. I have 2 on here. Is this the one? Let me look at hit set and go to Embroidery, and let's go to the steps and go down. I want to see if this one is the one that has the, it's the candle wicking, and then the, nope, I think maybe I need to go back and say okay, and we're going to go back to here, go back to the pocket. I thought that was the one that has the gold running stitch at the very end. I wish I could see the name of this file. See, I had changed it to green, didn't I? Or did I change it to yellow? Did I save it? Alright, so let me look at this. I may have to go back to my files. The mouse does not work on this section for some reason. Let me unplug it. It just cannot get to that slider over here at the far right. Come on, go down. Alright, so that's the gold outline right there. Yes, this is it. Alright, so this is the design that we just went through. I'm going to go to Embroidery, and when I go to the sections, then it comes up, and let's see, if I just go up, that is gold. And there's the egg. Let's see, is this catching this enough? Sorry, let me turn this around a little bit. Okay, so let me go back here. So I'm at in layout. I go to here and I go up 1. Up 1. No. Let's go back out. Let's go to home. Embroidery, pocket, USB, and I scroll down and it is this one, I believe. Yes, I hit set, and when I go up with the colors, my very last color is gold, so I know I have the right version. Hit Embroidery, and I pick this needle button right here, and it allows me to see all the different steps. If I go down, go back up, which is where we start, and if I go up 1, I have the gold, here's the gold, as my last running stitch. This doesn't let me zoom in, so I can't see it, where you can when you're in PE Design 11 or palette 11. So we now have the, we'll go back in here, go down. So that's the beginning of all the steps, and we now have all of our steps on our design that was originally created in P Design, but I left out a couple of steps, and then when I got in there doing some modification, I decided I want to add that last gold. I think maybe I've already gone down it once, yes. Okay, so that's the candle wicking and the fabric and the satin stitch, and the last one is the gold running stitch. So that's how you do it. All right, thanks for watching.